So, introduction of the slides. It's the presentation and introduction and moving forward to the introduction slides. So, introduction. What would you see on this?
So before, you mean before showing the our personal life?
Yeah.
So, right second. So you should start, and then start talking when it's my slide.
It's not a big one. It's okay.
It's supposed to come and help the monitor, so there's a red button probably somewhere near to press.
Oh yeah, it's already pressed.
That's already
also level.
Alright, cool. Great.
Awesome. A lot of help.
We're going to teach about it's Summit's favorite place. And they have vegetarian pizza. It's good.
Okay, welcome everybody to our presentation about fields and entities. We'll talk about the good, but also about the bad and the ugly. So let's figure it out. I'm Wolfgang Ziegler, or fago on D.O. I'm from Vienna, Austria. I studied there at the Technical University, and I'm CTO of my company, Tronomics. I'm doing Drupal since 2005. Yeah, that's it.
Hello everybody, I'm Francesco Placella from Venice, Italy. I studied at the Ca' Foscari University of Venice, and currently I'm the owner of a small business in Venice. I've been doing Drupal since 2006, and I think that's all.
You guys might want to speak up a little bit.
Okay,
Okay.
let's go on. So, a small introduction. This is my first presentation in English, so please be patient. And when asking questions, try and stick with two rules. The first one, this one, you are ready? Speak loud and speak low, please.
We'll try to follow the rule as well.
And the second one, please try to avoid any sentence or phrase whose meaning can be found exclusively on the Urban Dictionary. Okay, this is the outline of our presentation. We'll start with a brief overview of the D7 Field API, and then we'll pass along explaining the D7 Entity API, which is a concrete model, while the Field API is core. Then we'll pass on with the best practice to write good code, exploiting Field API and Entity API, and above all, we'll focus on the data access, so how to access entity fields and properties the right way, respecting multilingual environments. And then we will have a brief showcase of what Drupal 8 is going to bring us. Let's start. Okay, this is how. This is okay. This is the right one. And a brief introduction on the Field API. The Field API is in core and it's the new version of what the Drupal 6 CDK used to be. It's far more advanced API, features a far more advanced API with respect to CCK, which can be divided in four main areas. The info API, which will provide all the functions that you can use to retrieve information about fields and instances. Instances are just a particular instance of a field attached to an entity and a bundle. We will see afterwards what an entity and a bundle are meant to be, but in the essential is that an entity type is a node or a taxonomy term or a comment, and the bundle is the equivalent of a content type for nodes, but extended to any entity type. Another area is the CRUD area that provides functions to programmatically create and update and delete and retrieve fields and instances, so that you can leverage that one if you want to create a field like node body programmatically instead of adding it through the field UI. The attach one, the attach area, which is a set of functions that allow you to process the actual field values. So you have functions that are that concerns the CRUD operation. So you can call them when you are creating a custom entity, when you are updating your custom entity, when you are deleting, and so on. You understand what it is. And then we have a couple of functions that are meant to use as data structure accessors. So they are meant to mainly retrieve values from the entity objects.
Wrong direction. You can go back and left. No, what are you looking for?
Okay. And they reversed. Okay. This is how a field looks like. Okay. We have an entity object, and the entity object can be whatever you can imagine. It can be a node, it can be a taxonomy term, it can be a comment, whatever. And then you have a first array level where you can find the field name. Then it is accessed through the field name. Then you have another level, that is the infamous Langford level. Then you have the delta level and the column level. So basically, the typical example is the node body. You have node, body, length on whatever, we will see that, 0 and value. And in there you will find the actual value of the body. Okay, I'm having some trouble with arrows. Okay, let's see the language part with some more details. What affects what you will find in the language level is field translatability. What does that mean? That a field may or may not have multiple languages. If in core, fields are created by default with no translatability. So the translatability is disabled. So if you don't alter that stuff, you will always find your values by using the language none, language value. Otherwise, if you enable translatability, you will find your values by providing the language code your value belongs to. One thing that not everyone understands from the very beginning is that a single field may have multiple values. It's not that language code is not meant to say only that a value has a language and which language it has, but you can have multiple values for each language. This allows to provide translation for entities without having to replicate those. Okay, you can have multiple values per language in the same field. What does this mean? That you have to, when you are processing field values, you may have to act or on each language value available, or on a single one, depending on the context. The core field attach, we will see afterwards what context requires one of the two cases. The core field attach behavior is acting on all languages when it's dealing with storage operations, so it saves and loads all the field language values. And instead, when displaying an entity or an entity form, it just speaks one language and acts only on one language. Okay, let's go on. Okay. Okay. What does this bring us? We have this additional language level provide us a good consistency because it deals with languages as in CCK we used to deal with multiplicity. So we have a delta level even if the field is singular. And in the same way, we have a language level even if the field is not translatable. This means that we can switch translatability in any moment and things will keep working. We don't have to change our code if we are doing the things right, as it was said. What also brings us a very bad DX, because every time we need a field value, we need to specify which language it should be in. And not always we know which language we have to use. Or sometimes we never know. So, one of the reasons we have such a bad DX is that we introduced the concept of entity very late in the D7 life cycle. And so that prevented us from providing more advanced tools to access these fields. We have a half-baked entity system in core, and that's why Fago created the entity API model for D7.
Okay, let's have a closer look about the entity API in general and what it's good for. So really, in Drupal, the entity API is just a unified way to access any kind of data. It's a data object, you can load it, and with the additions of the entity API module in Drupal 7, you also have full graph, so you can save, delete it. And in core right now, you can only load them. So, as mentioned, it really was born out of the field API. So, first of the field API was created, and it was kind of a way to attach any fields to any kind of object. And then we figured out, okay, that really just makes sense if all the underlying objects follow also a common API. And this was really the reason the entity API got introduced. But as of now, the entity API also works without fields. So it's really the concept that was born that way, but fields are an optional thing for entities. Or for most entities you know are fieldable, but some in the back aren't. Also we have in Drupal 7 core vocabularies, those are entities, those are not fieldable, or we have the files which without the file entity concept are also not fieldable. So this slide shows the whole idea about the entity concept. So on the right you see modules which implement, I would say, solutions for entities. So you have search functionality, you add voting, or a group functionality like organic groups, or entity reference module which can reference any kind of entity, or the rules module which also can deal with any entity. All those modules implement something on top of the entity concept, so they work with any kind of entity. And on the left side, you see the implementing modules, which, if you want to say, they provide data to the system, so they implement an entity type and make it available under the entity concept. And then the nice thing is that as they are entities, they automatically gain all the API and all the solutions modules that are out there for entities. And it really makes it much easier to have a lot of modules that work for all the data objects, because you don't have to do integration for any combinations of those. So when you